Hello and welcome to Shoot the Breeze, where we take a nostalgic look at a random football magazine from the past. I'm Andy Smith, aka Scott's Footy Cards on Twitter, and with me is Tom Brogan.
Hello.
In each episode we'll invite a special guest to join us in trawling through the magazine and discuss anything contained within it. This could be anything from an article, to a photograph, to a competition, to an advert. Basically, if it's in it, then we'll talk about it. So sit back and let's shoot the breeze.
Wriggles clear, might just get the chip, and he does, he's scored! Oh, what a great tackle! He's done it! Oh, brilliant play! Wiggling his way, that's an excellent ball, and Didi! It's a goal, forward for Clydebank. Excellent play by Hughes. I think the player of the match, and sweetly finished by Kenny.
This week, we're pleased to be joined by our first European Cup winner, Liverpool legend David Fairclough. David, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Nice to talk to you guys.
Yes, thank you, David. It's an absolute pleasure and an honour to have you on, so thank you for joining us. What we've done is we've picked out a magazine for yourself from 1976. It's a Shoot magazine, and it's from the 24th of January 1976. So as we do, we'll start from the front cover, and it's dominated with a photo of Northern Ireland player-manager Dave Clements, and he's surrounded by shirts from international opponents. Now, Dave is sitting on some grass and has a Northern Ireland shirt in his hands, but spread around him are shirts from some of the nations he's faced. So going clockwise from the right-hand side, we have an England top, and it's a yellow one, so I'm thinking that's probably a goalkeeper shirt, although England did have a yellow chain strip back then as well, but that was made by Umbro. This one is the yellow one, the change one was made by Admiral, and this one is by Umbro. So I'm thinking that's probably a goalkeeper shirt.
Yeah, quite likely. Looks that way. I think that time I can't remember seeing England playing yellow at. I don't remember that, but yeah.
Yeah, there's only one. I think it's Jerry Francis I've seen in it, and there's only one photograph, and it's one of these Airtex ones as well. So that's all. I don't think that's what this one is. So the next kit up is light blue, and it's a Cyprus. So that's quite an unusual one there. Next up from that is a Scotland kit. It's a dark blue with a white wing collar and cuffs. Next one is Turkey. I think that one's pretty obviously Turkey. It's a white kit, and it's a thick red hoop around the chest, and there's a white crescent moon and star inside this as well. And next one up is Bulgaria, and it's an all red strip with a large round badge in the middle of the shirt. That one I wasn't too sure about that one, so I had to do a bit of digging to work out what that one was, but that's Bulgaria. Next one up is, anybody know what this one is?
Portugal, isn't it?
Portugal, yeah. So this is a white Portuguese shirt with a red and green round collar, and I really like that collar. And lastly is an all white Soviet Union kit with a red CCP across the chest.
The interesting thing about all these shirts, there is a little bit of, I don't know, romance, mystique about them. But what was curious in those days was what they were all made out of. And generally, I mean, some of them, particularly, Russian shirts and a number of others were Eastern European ones.
Yeah.
were made out of really poor stuff. And when you showed people down the years, memories, shirts, and things like that, people can't believe that footballers ran around in sort of such inferior quality. How every shirt now, every country plays with really good equipment now. So you don't get many shocks as such.
Did you collect many shirts from your opponents over the years, David?
I had a few. We weren't. Unfortunately, I didn't play that often in the international scene, so I didn't have too many continental, international shirts. But we were occasionally allowed to change our Liverpool shirts. It wasn't quite as frequent as the players of these days get the opportunity to do, because Ronnie Moran, who was in charge of our kit, he tended to treat those shirts as if they were his own, and you were giving his money away, you know. So we always had to get permission if we changed. But I got some interesting ones actually. I've got a Scotland shirt just like the one that was in the corner. Yeah. I never played against Scotland as such, but Andy Roxburgh gifted me one. Right. Quite randomly. He was down on the night of the Liverpool Saint Etienne game, right. And the day after the game, he gifted me a shirt exactly the same as that one. I think it was I've still got it. It's number 14. Mm-hmm. But I played against teams from those countries, Russia and Bulgaria and the likes. The quality was so inferior. It's I've got an interest in Russian one. It's not an international. It's a Dynamo, one of the Dynamo teams. It's like it's type of cloth you clean your car with more than wear for a football match.
Which one that you do have would you say is your most prized? It's not a Liverpool one.
Yeah, well, the Liverpool ones were always the ones that automatically sparked off memories and. I don't think I've really got. I've still got a couple of shirts. I've got more stuff left from my time in Belgium and Switzerland than Liverpool, because people have tended to be. Well, they collect Liverpool. Liverpool stuff is very collectible, and it's been in demand down the years. So I kind of let a few of those go to some keen collectors. But I've been left with a few sort of Belgian and Swiss shirts, really, which no one probably would ever have heard of. So they're quite random.
I think one of the things that we miss out on these days, because of, I mean, players do change shirts, but they don't put them on. And so one of the things that you actually miss out on is seeing like some photographs of Danny McGrain with an England top on, lifting up a trophy. And I sort of miss that thing where you see, really, it's a sight that you shouldn't be seeing, is certain players in certain shirts, and the reason being is because they've swapped them at full time, but they've actually then put them on, and you just don't see that nowadays. Yeah,
some guys used to put the shirt on of the player that they'd exchange with. They weren't too worried about the sweatiness or the smell of smell of them. Few were a little bit more. They were a bit more careful, and maybe you just see some lads showing off their big hairy chest with the shirts wrapped around their neck. There are lots of you saw things in the 70s which obviously have never really, as time's passed on, that they've gone from the game, and seeing something like this. I mean, this is quite tame. See Dave Clement sort of set up with this shot, but in the 70s. Players used to get asked to do all kinds of weird and wonderful things, and they were only ever too happy to do it. It was a little bit of publicity. These days, you sense that players probably wouldn't take part in some sort of photo stunt unless they were paid, quite well for it. So it's, I mean, some of these things show up down the years. Players in different things, and I've had a few shocks down the years. They were great, but that was part of the fun of achieving, having a big game, where you've scored a few goals, you're the hero of the hour, so to speak. And the next day, the press boys would come round to the ground and then have you doing all sorts, whether or not it's putting cowboy hats on or dressing up like whatever. Keegan and Toshag dressed up as Batman and Robin. Now, I don't think you'd ever see Harry Kane and Wayne Rooney sort of dressed up as in anything so weird and wonderful.
I've certainly seen a lot of the ones that you talk about there, especially that Batman one. It reminds me of Only Fools and Horses. I think is the same sort of look to it as that one.
Yeah, we had. I think there's a little bit of a thing that appears every now and again. There's half a dozen of the Liverpool players all in get-ups. I'm dressed up as a cowboy and one thing or another. Ray Clemens was hanging out the wash, and I think, or something or other. So I mean that was the thing. But I'd say that the main thing behind it was that the players' readiness to to get involved, have a little bit of fun, and they weren't sort of they weren't conscientious of their image. What they just did, and everybody did. Everybody entered into the spirit.
Mm. Okay, so just looking at Chris here himself, so he's got his Ireland kit there, but he's kitted out in a light blue polo type t-shirt, and he's on dark blue or darker blue flared jeans and sandals. He's wearing a pair of sandals there, thankfully without socks, so at least he's covered himself there. So looking at the other stuff on the front page, there's an A to Z of Northern Ireland internationals inside. Other features on the front page are it's 12 pence, and it says Shoot incorporating Goal. So the magazine is still highlighting the fact that Self and Goal magazine merged previously. Now Shoot actually incorporated with Goal back in the 15th of June 1974. So here we are nearly 2 years later, and they're still, you think by this point they would have just got rid of that little bit.
I was talking to a pal earlier on today. I was just telling him what I had in store and tonight. And he said, "Were you in Shoot?" And I said, "Yeah." He was quite amazed. I was surprised he had that reaction.
Yeah.
But he was surprised I'd actually been in Shoot. But I used to collect Shoots from the day that they started. Obviously, many years ago, even well before I became a footballer. And I used to have them all bound, and they were quite collectible Shoots, probably. Yeah. Don't know where they've all gone to these days, but. All these things are good fun to look back on, many years later, and you see how 12 pence. What can you get for 12 pence these days? Not a great deal.
Yeah, well, that's my thing, David. Is that I collect all football nostalgia. So I started off with Topps football cards, which we collected as kids, and then I started collecting Shoot magazines, Match magazines, Goal, Charles Buchan Monthly, Panini stickers. So I've then built up my collection as well. So. That's where my interest in all this comes from. So if you want to know where the Shoot magazines have gone, it's upstairs in my room. So
mine are probably in the loft, but I remember buying the binders, and so I had them all very well kept, all in good condition, and stuff. But it is great fun. It is good fun. It's it always evokes memories, whether or not you're looking at old programs or old magazines.
Mm-hmm. So what else have we got here? Part 3 of our special pull-out, the FA Cup wall chart in colour inside. There's a focus in colour on Alan Kennedy and Newcastle United, and there's a club call on Aberdeen plus a team group in colour. Now, one of the things I find interesting from that is there's 3 separate parts of the front page that mentions it's in colour. And back then it must still have been quite a selling point that we've got colour things in here. So woof, look at us.
Yeah, because most of the stuff inside was black and white.
Yeah. In which case, let's have a wee look inside. So pages 2 and 3, we have News Desk compiled by Peter Stewart. And I'm going to pick a couple of things out from here. The first one is why Derek Dougan chose Kettering. So the first article in this feature looks at Derek Dougan and asks why he chose to join Kettering Town as chief executive. Now, Derek says the right offers from the league clubs were never made. I could have joined 20 league clubs, but most were in desperate financial trouble where the future would have been bleak. Kettering approached me and offered me the job. I liked the sound of it, and that was that. I signed up. The setup is fantastic. So Derek, he would spend a couple of years at Kettering and would lead them to the 3rd round of the FA Cup this season that we're talking about. He was also the man who came up with the idea of teaming up with local company Kettering Tyres and having the company name on their shirts. The first time this idea of sponsorship on shirts was done in England. The FA, however, demanded that the sponsors be removed from the shirts, to which Dougan attempted to circumvent that by shortening the text to Kettering T. The logo was eventually removed in June 1977. So there's a wee bit of history there, isn't it? You just don't really imagine that there was a point where there was no, the first person started thinking, let's put sponsorship on shirts, because there was Talbot, wasn't it, with Coventry City as well, with Jimmy Hill, that tried to do that as well. Famously in Scotland, Hibs with Buckter on the front as well. And these were few and far between and caused a lot of problems. A lot of people were upset about this. And when you look at some kits nowadays, you just can't imagine there not being sponsorships.
Yeah, I think. It doesn't surprise you that the people that were involved in these initiatives, the likes of Derek Dougan, Jimmy Hill, I don't know who's involved in the Hibs one, but Very strong individuals. Derek Dugan made a really good, big name for himself. He was outspoken. He was chairman of the, I think he was chairman of the PFA. I think he was one of the early players, chairman of the PFA. Had a very forceful, strong approach on the pitch, and he took that with him when he left football. I mean, he became a very prominent pundit because he was outspoken. He was a strong Northern Irish personality and innovative. And I think you have to give credit to people who tried to change the game. Jimmy Hill was incredibly innovative and was at the front of a lot of changes in football. And I think that Derek Dugan's personality went right through his career, both on and off the field.
Mm-hmm. Okay, on to the next one is just 4 great players. So Coventry director Joe Mercer suggests that England could win the World Cup in Argentina with only 4 world-class players. And he backs up his suggestion by saying, when England won the World Cup, we only had 4 genuinely great players. Gordon Banks, Ray Wilson, Bobby Moore and Bobby Charlton. The German team in 1975 had Beckenbauer, Overath, Müller, Hoeneß and possibly Breitner, but certainly no more. Now, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I think there was more. Possibly, even though he never actually played in the final, Jimmy Greaves could be classed as a genuine world-class player.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Jimmy, obviously, there's been many things said about Jimmy Greaves' omission from the '66 final, and he was a top man, incredibly talented, and would certainly be in that, would have been in that group. But Joe Mercer was a respected manager and man of football, and I suppose obviously he's talking about the individuals who actually took part in the games, and he doesn't name my all-time favourite in his 4 there, but I was a huge Roger Hunt fan, and still my hero now. Never been anybody that's matched up to Sir Roger, as we like to call him in Liverpool. But I went to the 1966 Cup final. I was only 9. So, and any time I see anything like this, it really does take me back. This is very much my time of watching football and then obviously breaking into it.
Mm-hmm. So you made your debut with Liverpool just in the October-November the year before, is that right?
75.
Yeah.
I made my debut. I was 70, 75. I was being sort of. I've got articles there. I was being touted to have been an outsider to have made the 1976 European squad. Didn't happen in those days. It took more than perhaps to have half a dozen or 10 games, good games in the Premier League before you got an international cap. Unlike today, where you only have to have a good game and you find yourself in the international team. And I finished the 76 season off very strongly, and was being touted as, in some by some writers that I should have sort of been maybe a sort of a late addition to the group of 76, which would have been amazing. Obviously, international football is really where you do want to make your name, leave your mark. As all these names here are mentioned, they're all incredibly great players.
Well, I wanted to ask you, David, just talking about you joining Liverpool. Obviously, especially up here in Scotland, we're all very much aware of Bill Shankly, but pretty much all in sound bites and grand statements. And I know you never actually played a game under him, but he was the manager that signed you. So I just wanted to ask what he was like on a sort of 1-to-1 basis.
He was an amazing man, Shanks. He was a man that we all looked to. He was God in Liverpool through the 60s. What he did in terms of creating the great team, the Liverpool lifestyle, the mantra, and he he was just pure passion and enthusiasm, and you never heard a negative sound from Shanks's, thoughts. He was always talking about great to be alive and not underachieving, and to give your best, and you should be, proud and honoured to be at Anfield and at Liverpool and be doing what you were doing. And even as a young boy, we were in plenty of situations where Shanks spoke to us as a group, or would pick you out one morning, might just wander over to you and just sort of give you, some sort of input about maybe what you've been doing or what he had in store for you. I got to know Shanks better probably after he retired than actually in the team, because when he was manager of Liverpool, because you have that kind of fear factor, and you have that distance, and you have the respect for him. Whereas afterwards, he became a little bit more sort of easier to be in the, he didn't have that position of power, so you felt a little bit more at ease in his company. But again, it was all about enthusiasm and the joy of life and positivity. He was an incredible positive, human being.
So the next article we're going to look at is free passes is the heading, and it says, in the days of falling attendances, Scottish First Division club Dumbarton have come up with a remarkably brave but far-sighted idea. At every home game, 50 local children are handed complimentary tickets and given their own spot in the enclosure. The club secretary John Hosey says, we contact headmasters of schools in the area and inform them that 50 tickets are available to their pupils. They select who will come along, and usually a couple of teachers accompany them. We've already had about 500 youngsters in like this, and we know that some of them are now coming back every week, paying more at the gate and bringing their dads with them. The Barton's thought process behind this idea is that today's guests are tomorrow's paying customers. Now, just on that, so Tom and myself are both Clydebank supporters, and
congratulations.
And when the reason I became a Clydebank supporter was through this exact sort of process. I was given a season ticket from our school, and it was a local club. I could walk there in probably about half an hour or something.
Yep.
And I this idea, it just, for me, it's an idea that should be done a lot more by clubs at all levels to get people interested, because it worked for me. I mean, I'm still involved and still following the team and being a fan, and it's like, it doesn't take much effort to do that. Free passes, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I agree. It's fantastic, and I just, obviously, I think it's to be respected. Anybody sticks with their local team and the team that they're first attracted to, and you go through all the thick and the thin, and you're just wrapped up in the whole thing. I think I'm very lucky. I grew up a few hundred yards away from Anfield, so I don't have any problem sort of justifying why I'm a Liverpoolian. But I mean, people who come from the other end of the country and what have you, that they make their choice for all kinds of different reasons. But I think it's great that people do feel a part of a community, feel a part of a club, like in this situation Dumbarton, and yeah, very much obviously the likes of Liverpool, maybe Manchester United, people have not always had that opportunity to give tickets away. Liverpool of late, some of last year they had an FA Cup replay against Shrewsbury. They gave a lot of tickets away, which I think was it's a rarity in Liverpool's case. But I think that there is the belief that the sentiment here, get kids involved at a young age. You've got them who hopefully that they hook onto you a little bit, and somewhere down the line they will become your paying public down the years. But one thing about when you get kids at games, and when you if you ever remember schoolboy internationals and stuff like that, the noise, it's always positive. You don't get booing and jeering from kids. It's only enthusiasm, it's passion. Yeah. It's it's all pro stuff. It's great, and I think you have all these memories that they get excited and all that stuff. There was, I saw a feature on one of the Scottish teams, and I can't remember. I'm not sure it was Dumbarton. There's a group of young lads that have become fierce supporters of
Dumbarton.
Dumbarton, yeah. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, obviously, you see some of the older guys who are sitting there thinking, like, what's all this racket going on? But I mean, it's great for the players. The manager certainly appreciates the drive that these young lads sort of send out. So no, I think disappointing maybe that this is coming from 1978, and we haven't seen probably really much more of this.
Yeah.
But no, it's a great incentive, and it'd be great to know how many of these local kids are still season ticket, still season ticket holders.
Absolutely. No, you made the point there, and as I read this, it was on A View from the Terrace, wasn't it, Tom? That they're doing exactly the same thing. They're letting the young fans in. They're, as you said, David, they've got their own little section where they bang drums and they make noises and stuff, and you can see all the older fans going, I wish they would just shut up. But it's a future. It's a future.
Well, yeah, it's positive, isn't it? As I say, they don't all shout, get off and all this type of stuff and you're rubbish and all that. It's all helping. It's all enthusiasm. It's great.
Yeah. So this next one I'm going to look at is language problem, and it's about Peter Latchford. And so the English goalkeeper who has made a big hit with Celtic reckons he is fully adjusted to life in Scotland. He's now moved to the area with his wife, but perhaps his biggest obstacle so far has been learning the language. Yeah, I know. Peter says, the dialect was hard for me to follow at first, but now I know what expression like "geese the ball" and "leave it alone" mean. I'm enjoying playing for Celtic. Now, the point I'd like to make here is Peter's from Birmingham. So I'm guessing, he's probably got quite a strong Brummie accent himself. So I can imagine maybe a combination of both the Glaswegian and the Brummie accent wasn't the greatest combination to try and learn it with.
Yeah, I mean, well, if he was having problems from Birmingham in later years, some of these guys have come from farther afield will have even greater problems with some of the colloquial sort of phrases and stuff. I mean, we had a hell of a problem understanding Kenny Dalglish, I mean, particularly the likes of Avi Cohen, he was Avi coming from Israel and Kenny from Glasgow. Neither knew what each other was on about. So.
Yeah. Okay. The next one here is it's about Ayr Academy. It says so. Ayr Academy must be the only school in Britain to have provided 3 different international stars in 3 different sports. They are Ian McLaughlin, who presented Scotland. He was the present Scotland rugby skipper. Ian Ure is a former Arsenal and Scotland stopper, pictured beside the article, and Mike Dennis, former England cricket captain. Now, I don't profess to know anything about cricket. So what are the rules with cricket about representing England? Is it about playing in one of the county sides?
Yeah, I would. You know what? I couldn't be definitive because I'm just, as I say, I was about to say something, but then you think, well, Viv Richards played for Somerset, so he couldn't play for England. So somewhere along the line, Mike Dennis must have qualified on the parenting thing. I suspect. I don't think it was a great. Talking point, but he was, he was remembered as a solid captain. Obviously, maybe that's the Scot in him that made him forceful and allowed him to be in charge of some really good players. Obviously, cricket was it was a great era for cricket in the 70s. But I remember Ian Ure, and somebody superimposed my head actually on a picture of Ian Ure on a birthday card upstairs when he was playing for Manchester United. Was it Arsenal? When he played Arsenal against Manchester United, right? I mean, he looked a big figure of a man, didn't he? Ian Ure, he looked a very physical type. I remember him playing a little bit. Yeah, famous name from the past, Ian Ewer.
I think any photograph I've ever seen him, apart from this one, it looks as though he's about to start scrapping with someone. There's always someone just out of shot that he's, about to start, going up towards. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, big forceful guy. I think he played for Hibs, didn't he? Was it Hibs he played for?
Dundee, I think he came from Dundee, yeah.
But I mean, he always had he had a good head of hair and big strong chin.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to mix it with Ian Ewer.
Yeah. Okay, next one here is Reds robbed. So this article here could be just sort of the stereotype image of Liverpool, but we'll read it anyway. It says, someone on Merseyside is the proud owner of 2 complete sets of Liverpool's playing and training gear, much to the annoyance of the club. The kit was stolen from a van en route to the laundry. Yeah, that's that's just, as I say, it's just playing up to this stereotype, isn't it? Which, yeah, I'm not a big fan of those sort of things, but it's quite humorous. It's quite humorous.
I think, obviously, we are. We do have a reputation for certain things on Liverpool, but sometimes you look at these things and you think true or false.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that's I'm not convinced. I haven't been around at that time. I'm not convinced that's a true tale.
Yeah, as you were saying about who was it that looked after the kits? Was it Ronnie Moran?
Ronnie Moran.
I mean,
yeah, they were. I mean, more often than not, Ronnie's wife cleaned the kit. And the training kit never got cleaned from one season to another. Well, did at the end of the season. The kit you had for training, when you started it with it in July, you finished with it the following May. The only thing it'd been dried in throughout the winter. It was a serious health hazard wearing Liverpool's training kit.
I think if this had genuinely happened, you would have heard about it from Ronnie, wouldn't you? There would have been
without shadow. I think the boys would have. Even the boys might have stole it themselves to get some fresh kit. Because I'll be honest with you, the end of the week, Monday to Friday, your socks stood up on a Friday. They were. It was horrendous. Anybody that was at Liverpool through the 70s will tell you. It wasn't. You weren't treated like stars. Yeah, maybe that was maybe one of our secrets.
Well, we'll go with that. We'll say it was an inside job, shall we? That's
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that sounds. It sounds maybe on the right line.
Yeah. The next one here is Go Down the Mines, and this is Stuart Walker, a 25-year-old York keeper who's only turned pro last July, and he has a sound message for the temperamental stars of modern day soccer. He says, before signing for York, I was a fitter at a coal mine, and I think if a lot of pro players had a few weeks underground, they would be not so temperamental. They would surely be thankful they are good enough to play the greatest sport in the world for a living. I still go and see my old mining mates and realise how lucky I am I served a tough apprenticeship with them. It will help me try all the harder in football. Now, just a wee spoiler on Stuart here, he actually only managed 2 league games in total for York City before injury ended his professional career. He then had a spell with Marine in non-league football, and he became a
round the corner from here.
He became a physiotherapist and is actually still, at the last count, he was working at Aston Villa as a physio, so he's still there at the moment. But yeah, it's that strong message of players who, I mean, talking about footballers back then being. They don't know what a proper day's work is and things like that. And if only they could then jump forward to now and see what's happening, he wouldn't be able to. Stuart Walker would go mad, wouldn't he, trying to deal with that?
Yeah, I think that is that's a harsh reality, and I suppose a lot of modern footballers don't choose to look at what they have these days. Unfortunately, times moved on, I think, but there was a great there was a genuine belief that you were lucky to be a footballer in those days, and and before. I mean, lads who became footballers, they tried to make the most of the opportunity. Think of Ian Wright, who didn't come into the game till he was about 22 or something. So lads, Jimmy Case was a part-time professional, was an electrician. And And whilst it doesn't compare to being a minor, I think if you do realise how fortunate you are to be running out every morning, keeping fit, for a couple of hours a day, for the most part, it's a very, very fortuitous situation you find yourself in, and this is obviously, I mean, it's a very emotive little tale, and it's interesting, but it was football of the time. All credit to him for having experienced that, and then making the most of it, and remaining in football all these years later.
I think an interesting thing about that is that there wasn't a great deal of money in the game for players then, and that was the period where they counted themselves lucky to be playing that. And it seems that the more money's come into it, the less they actually realise how lucky they are, when they should probably be thinking that they're more lucky. Does that make sense?
Life has changed in so many ways, and you can go on a long time about what has created these people, the players now who sort of they've been spoilt. But I mean, somewhere along the line, when you were an apprentice, certainly in our day in the 70s and beforehand, you heard of the jobs that you used to do: cleaning bats, mopping floors, hanging out the kit, doing jobs around the pitch, and all those type of things. And before you got into being a pro footballer, and then you were only say maybe a reserve at 17 or 18, but you had a hard grounding, and from being maybe this sort of star maybe in schoolboy football, and you think, well, I'm going to be a footballer. You go into a club, all of a sudden when you get into that club now, where you might have been the star of the team that you played for, you're bottom of the ladder, and there was a great sort of leveling and sort of a situation that prepared you for being sort of where you were, and giving you a grounding, I thought. And I think, so I don't think it was a great thing when young lads came into football clubs and were automatically sort of, they get these days that you go to a club, a professional club in England, you get picked up probably by a driver, you get taken to the training ground and all these things, and by the time you're 17, 18, you're driving a Range Rover, and all these things, so it's sort of that's all being taken out, this grounding type of thing. People get far too much too early, I think.
You could maybe say that you can't really blame the players for it. It's the whole situation around it that leads to that, environment rather than the players. But I absolutely agree with you.
I don't think there's a little. I think there's a little. A few things have changed. I mean, we're kids. We're once upon a time. Kids are very precious. I don't lose that fact. But I mean, you see kids getting, maybe getting injured slightly on a pitch. Kids are a bit more mollycoddled now than they were in years gone by. So the society has changed. It's not an easy one to answer. But I think it's great, and I think if like us, we're looking at this 40 years later, how lads came through into the game, and they came from a ground, and that they appreciated, that they were happy to be a footballer. And you see the stories today, with the England players, not respecting how fortunate they were to be where they are, and to go and break rules just like that. It just shows how society's changed. Yeah,
that's absolutely incredible. Yeah, but well done, Stuart Walker, still in the game.
Fantastic.
So well done to him. Next one we're going to look at is Taffyville is the headline, so we'll have a wee look at this. And it says, supporters of Bristol Rovers are thinking of renaming their ground from Eastville to Taffyville because they have so many Welsh-born players on the staff. Recently, the club took a team to play a charity game in Wales, and the whole party, the team and subs, were born in the country. With the opening of the Severn Road Bridge and extension of the M4 motorway, the soccer-mad folk in the Welsh valleys are just an hour's car ride from Bristol. That's a lovely wee one there. Obviously,
yeah. Well, Bristol Rovers, when I had a spell in the third division towards the end of my career, and there weren't many Welsh players in the team at that point. They were pretty decent team, and I'm sure it didn't go down too well in Bristol Rovers. that they were full of Welsh players at that point. There's nothing more than you'd like to see sort of homegrown players at least sort of featuring in your team. Probably the manager was Welsh as well.
So next one we're going to look at is Cosmopolitan Peterhead. So Highland League side Peterhead are rapidly becoming Scotland's United Nations side. The reason? They've built up a good following amongst the American, Chinese and Italian communities in the town. Alan Munday, the club secretary, says, a number of Americans from the North Sea oil rigs have become very passionate about football and follow us regularly. And because of the oil boom, a number of Italian and Chinese restaurants have opened in the area and we get a lot of their waiters coming along. You know, I'd never even thought about that, the knock-on effect of, you know, the oil boom brings Americans, because there's more people there, the restaurants open up and, you know, the Italians come in, the Chinese come in, and then they start following the local team. I love that as a story. I think that's absolutely great.
Yeah, they just wonder, you know, in what numbers. It's nice. It's a great community thing, but I've never imagined Chinese waiters to really be into football that much.
Yeah,
Italians perhaps, but
yeah. You see, I don't think the numbers would have been. I mean, probably in relation to Peterhead. Yeah,
local.
It's look at this. It's a flood of 3 or 4 new people that have come in to watch us. So maybe, you know, it's all relative, I guess, isn't it? Okay, so the next one is give players a star treatment, says TV's Bill Maynard, who I remember from The Gaffer. That's the one that I remember him from the most. Comedian Bill Maynard thinks that managers dealing with problem players and falling crowds need to look at how players are handled, saying, they are the stars and should be treated as such. I would tell them how great they are, and those who aren't so good, I would tell them to work hard on their weaknesses. The players have a responsibility to entertain the public. They should be trying to do this all the time. The Bill mentions Frank Worthington and Rodney Marsh as 2 players who he admires as entertainers. And there's an accompanying black and white photograph of Bill with a huge smile on his face, and it looks as though he's been out shooting grouse or something as well, because he's got a rifle over his shoulder and he's holding a bird. So again, it's sort of the opposite of what Stuart was saying previously, isn't it? So Stuart's saying they need to toughen up and realise how hard it is, you know, in their proper job. And he's saying, Bill Maynard's saying, you need to look after them. You need to blow smoke up their backside and things like that. So,
yeah, but I mean, Rodney wouldn't have lasted as long as he did, or Frank. I mean, they took the knocks as well. Mm-hmm. So whilst they were 2 of the, you know, so-called entertainers of the time, certainly they were both flamboyant and they stood out in a crowd with their fashion and their hairstyles and stuff. They were still hardy, tough lads, because they had long careers, and you didn't last long in football. I mean, Rodney was playing from probably mid-60s to late 70s, and hard to do that with the position of it. And I would say Frank was the same. They had a bit of grit. But I mean, I think that goes. I think lads did, you know, generally, you know, appreciate the chance that they were given and the opportunities that were sort of there for them, you know.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to page 6, and this is 2 former First Division managers now masterminding Third Division promotion chasers. This is Noel Cantwell of Peterborough and Malcolm Allison of Crystal Palace. So we'll look at Peterborough are now back in the map, says Noel Cantwell. So Noel Cantwell talks about his progression with Peterborough after being dismissed by Coventry. When he took over, Peterborough were, as Noel puts it, 3 points below the second last team in the Football League, which I think is a great way of saying that you're bottom of the league. His goal was to make them a second division team within 4 years. Having won the 4th division 2 years ago, they came close to promotion to the second division last year. Injuries to key players such as John Cousins and Chris Turner have cost them, in Noel's opinion, in both that season and this season so far. As a spoiler, they finished in 10th position this year, and Cantwell moved to the States in May of '77 to manage the New England T-Men, who became the Jacksonville T-Men between '77 and '82. He had a 2-year spell back at Peterborough between '86 and '88, but by this point the Posh were back in the 4th division and would stay there for the rest of his reign. So we spoke about the New England T-Men before, changing name to, because I know you played in the States yourself, David. The New England T-Men changed to Jacksonville T-Men, and asked Tom, do you know why they changed their name? And it's simply because they changed where they were. It was, they played in New England, and then they moved to Jacksonville.
Yeah, well, as I mean, all the clubs were, they were owned by the NASL basically. When the identities were owned by the league. So, you know, the fact that it was based in Jacksonville changed from sort of Boston area. I played against Jacksonville actually, and they were the team when I played against them. I was there for one summer in '82. Remember Noel Cantwell, obviously, as I remember him as a fullback for Manchester United. That's how far back I go. So
I think in this magazine there's actually quite a few references to players you've probably played against in the States as well as in England. So
this was obviously this is very much in my time. So it's you know, there's very few probably who I'm not familiar with.
Mm. So next one we're going to look at is Malcolm Allison, and he reveals why I want to succeed with Crystal Palace. So Shoot says that Allison is one of those people in soccer that fans apparently love to hate. Outspoken Allison says, up to now, people have said Malcolm Allison is a good coach, but they're loath to admit that I'm a good manager as well. I aim to prove that. Allison, who previously enjoyed considerable success at Man City with Joe Mercer, was asked about the differences between life in the First Division and life in the Third Division. He says, it's a different smell at the top of the first. You go to big stadiums and perform in front of 40,000. The adrenaline flows easily because the atmosphere stimulates you. In the Third Division, you go to Halifax or Shrewsbury and play in front of crowds that haven't had anything to cheer for years. The grounds can be grim, they need a lick of paint, and the atmosphere is dead. It's enough to bring players down. And he feels though that he has the players in his team who can deal with this, especially away from home when they roll up their sleeves and get on with the job. And he singles out Peter Taylor as the star man in the team, saying, Peter is the best wide player this country has produced in 10 years. You know, as a spoiler, this season would be a mixed bag for Allison, as Palace would beat Leeds United, Chelsea and Sunderland in the FA Cup before being put out by Southampton in the semi-final, but they would also fail to win promotion, and Allison would resign in May this year as well. So a bit of a mixed bag. But yeah, the more I read Malcolm Allison, he certainly seems a bit of a colourful character, should we call that? Yeah,
he was, and I think if you ever see any images of Malcolm Allison, he always looked well. Obviously there he's well tanned and stuff. But he had, wore big coats for the fedora, like the cigars, he liked champagne. They used to have a TV program, a football magazine program down here, Kickoff on a Friday night. So I met up with Malcolm Allison once or twice on those shows, and he was always larger than life, huge, huge personality. He was good for the game, and he made great for papers because he made headlines. He'd come out with some things that ordinary run-of-the-mill managers weren't prepared to say, and he probably got himself in a few sort of embarrassing spots really, because not fulfilling maybe what he was sort of often sort of quick to tell people, we'll do this and we'll do that.
Certainly a character. So moving on to the next page, which is Worldwide, compiled by Chris Davies, and we're going to look at this wife ban. So Timo Konietzka, the manager of Swiss side FC Zurich, has forbidden his wife to attend the team's games. His decision follows an incident a few minutes before the end of the local derby against Grasshoppers. He was called to the stand because his wife had fainted. Yeah, that's he's not going to be happy about that, is he? He's not going to be happy.
No. Well, I know. I mean, that story brings back a lot of memories for me. I came across Timo Konietzka because I played in Switzerland. Yeah. I played in Lucerne for 2 years, and we played FC Zurich in the European Cup semi-final in 1978. Wasn't it? It was in 77 rather. It's always nice. Obviously, in those days, I would not have looked at anything like this. A story about Swiss football wouldn't have interested me, but I was later to go and play there. It was an interesting football environment.
What was the level like there coming from the English First Division?
You know, as I said this sometimes the other day to somebody else in a different analogy, Tom. You think because you played at Liverpool, you've been European Cup holders and all this type of thing, and you're going to go to a league that Swiss league. You said, well, obviously you think it's going to be easy. You're going to be much better than anybody in the Swiss league, but it doesn't happen that way, does it? They were tough. They were very physical. Football played at a different tempo, and it just wasn't. It wasn't a walk in the park kind of thing for me, and big things were expected of me. I was under pressure. It was a great experience. Life was great, but very physical football, the Swiss. And as an international team, I think they could do quite well maybe when they were playing at home. You took Swiss out their own environment. They tended to didn't have quite the same sort of confidence.
Okay, so the next one we're going to look at on this page is Zagallo to Kuwait. So former manager of Brazil, Mario Zagallo, pictured below the article, has landed himself a plum job. He's now in charge of the Kuwait national team, and the oil-rich country has certainly been generous to Zagallo. His salary is £3,500 a month, with bonuses for winning matches. He has a car with chauffeur and a luxury bungalow supplied free. Now, my first thing I've got to take to task here is, do they call them bungalows in Kuwait? I don't think they maybe call them bungalows. But £3,500 a month back in 1976 that's incredible.
Yeah, it's decent. It was decent money. As part of £1,000 a week, he's up there with in 78. What are you thinking? It's probably double to any footballer was actually on. So. It sounds like an awful lot then. But not later. I mean, footballers soon caught him up, I think, on that one.
This next one I find quite funny. So Dynamo Kiev is accused of a bribe. It says a West German newspaper has accused Russian champions Dynamo Kiev of accepting 18 leather jackets for their players in return for a reasonable result in a friendly against Fenerbahce of Turkey. The Russians took a 2-0 lead, but Fenerbahce forced a 2-2 draw. The paper claimed that all 22 players left the fields with their arms raised. The Turkish equaliser was after a Kiev player had given the ball to a Fenerbahce forward. UEFA are looking into the matter. I just love the idea of a whole team just appearing with the same leather jacket on, getting onto the plane back. It's incredible.
It's that seems like one of them strange but true stories. You can imagine all kinds of goings on in Turkish football in those days. Yeah.
I did have a wee check to see if I could find any sort of record of it, but there wasn't anything. But let's just hope that it was true. So,
and I don't think UEFA looked too far into the matter. I think it was. Anybody knows anything about UEFA was that was. I think they probably got a couple of the leather jackets as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah. So next one is about El Salvador and Honduras, and this was something I wasn't really aware of. But it says apparently El Salvador and Honduras will not play against each other in the 1978 World Cup qualifying ties. When the countries last met, it triggered off a war. Now, there was a war between the two countries which became known as the Football War, or the 100 Hours War, which occurred in 1969. While not directly and solely linked to a game of football, existing tensions between the two countries rose over a period of a two-legged tie and a resulting playoff game where rioting occurred at all the games. So, yeah, it was one of these things that there was already tensions and, a lot going on between the two of them, and it just the football games allowed, I guess, those tensions to come out, and there was this 100-hour war that took place. So I wasn't really aware of that. So that was nice to know.
There was a lot going on in Central America in that time. British Army were in situ, weren't they? In over there in Belize and all around that area. So it was, we knew it was a hot spot, but I mean, yeah, football amongst those types of countries would have been physical.
Yeah. So moving on to pages 10 and 11. So the first one is a full colour photo of Kevin Keelan of Norwich City, and it's a great photo. I think it's a photo from a game, but it's obviously at a stage of the game where there isn't much going on, judging by his pose. He looks unperturbed with his hands on his hips. He's wearing an all green goalkeeper top with wing collars. The Norwich badge is there with an Umbro diamond on the opposite side of the chest. The shorts and socks are the outfield ones, which I'm always a big fan, and I don't like the way these goalkeeper kits have all become one colour, but that's the old nostalgic person in me. So he's wearing the outfield shorts and socks, so green shorts and yellow socks. There's a bit of paint on his knees as well, and he's not wearing any shin guards, which is pretty obvious from that. Now in the background on the left, you can just make out a blurry, so I was trying to work out who they were playing, so you can just make out a blurry player. I think that's Crystal Palace.
Probably every chance.
So, or I said it could well be, in fact, no, I changed my mind. I thought maybe it was Burnley because they just recently played them at Carroll Road. So, yeah, I think it's probably just, it looks as though he's just waiting for somebody to kick the ball back to him for a goal kick or something like that.
The sock of the player is white with the maroon top. Probably, you know what? It probably is Burnley.
Yeah.
It looks like it's a maroon shirt actually, with a number on.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably is Burnley.
So Kevin again played in the States. He played for the New England T-Men between 78 and 79, and between then and 80, Jacksonville T-Men between 80 and 81. So he continued in that. He was there for 3 years, and then Tampa Bay Rowdies as well, which he was assistant manager as well as a player there as well. So I think I checked up, he's actually moved to the States permanently, and he's been over there for quite a few years. And so other teams that he played for, Wrexham before he played for Norwich, and yeah, he was born in India. I think his dad was in the army.
I think so. I think there was a feeling that somebody used to think he was Indian, but I mean, he just had the very dark hair and great tan. I mean, obviously, he had that all year round tan, which he always looked well. Kevin Keelan, Bob Paisley. There are many stories about Paisley, but I often tell him when we were playing Norwich, and he said we noticed. He said when we looked at Norwich last week, he said Keelan. He said when he dives to his right, he's got short arms. And we used to think, what's he mean by that? But what he meant was if Keelan's diving to that off to the right hand side, he led with his left hand, which obviously he used half a thing. These little things you notice. The Kevin story earlier on about TV identifying strengths and weaknesses. Paisley was very good at sort of doing that. Wasn't always comfortable in front of the group, the team, but he'd just come along next to you and just tell you a little bit maybe about the guy that you were coming up against. Yeah. I mean, and these pictures of those. You dreamt of having a picture taken like that of Asa Hartford. As much as being a footballer, you thought, I can't wait to have my picture in the shoot and in that type of pose, Yeah.
So we'll look at Asa. So the one thing when I see this, as you mentioned, it is a classic footballer's pose, and I think the only thing that's maybe missing is a football just in front of him. Yeah. So he's crouched down, one hand on the floor, the other hand sort of the arm leaning on his knee. The shirt is a light blue Man City, your classic Man City strap, but this one's an Airtex one, so you can see the little holes in it as well. And he's wearing a pair of Adidas boots. Now, at first I wasn't sure when I couldn't really see properly, and at first I thought maybe he's used his dubbing on the boots over the white bits, but I think they're actually yellow ones. So yeah, smart, very smart. Love those.
Yeah, probably early in the season. Pitch looks well. He's got his little tan as well.
Yeah.
You played with Asa briefly.
I did at Norwich. He's a great guy, Asa. I mean, I only had a sort of short spell kind of getting to know him, but I met him then many times after I packed him playing and he was scouting, but he's a great fella, Asa Hartford, great footballer.
Did you ever find out why he was called Asa? Do you know the story?
I did hear it, but his real name's Richard, isn't it?
Yeah, Richard Asa Hartford, but his dad was a big Al Jolson fan.
Ah, right.
And Al Jolson's real name is Asa Jolson. So,
right.
Yeah. So that's the story with that. But yeah, he's from Clydebank as well, so he's a bit of a local legend up there.
Oh, he's a real character, Asa. Yeah, he was a real. He was lively, really interesting little fella, ducking and diving. You always have to keep your eyes on Asa,
Yeah. So just have a wee move on to the You Are the Ref. So we're looking at the You Are the Ref. So I'm going to pick out a couple of them from here. So the first one is you are about to drop the ball in the penalty area. When you see the goalkeeper in a crouched position, ready to grab the ball, do you A, proceed, B, order the goalkeeper to stand upright, or C, have the keeper replaced by another defender? Now, my first thought here is, goalkeeping is my position as well. I think that's a great idea for a goalkeeper. If there's a drop ball in the boxes, just get right down. As soon as it's dropped, you just drop your body onto it. I mean, you may take a kick in the head or something, but so what's your thoughts? What do you think? Proceed, order the keeper to stand upright, or have the keeper replaced by another defender?
I would say the goalkeeper can't be a part of a drop ball. I would say have the player replaced.
Is correct answer, but the reason they say is because it's an unfair advantage of using his hands, and also because of the potentially dangerous situation, which is fair enough. So the next one we're going to look at is number 4, and this is a goal kick. So this one's in 2 parts. At a goal kick, the goalkeeper places the ball on the boundary of the line of the goal area. You order him to move the ball inside the boundary line. So in B, there's a great, you can even see the petulance in this one. The keeper then deliberately kicks the ball into his own goal. You caution him and restart with a goal kick. So where was the problem in these two? Shall we go for the answer? So the fact is, firstly, he shouldn't have made him move it inside because obviously it's on the line. Yeah. So, but it says that you were right to caution the goalkeeper for his petulance. I love little ones like that where they just take the huff.
I've never seen it happen, I must admit. So
I was going to ask David, because I've noticed around at this time, and it wasn't always the way with You Are the Ref, but around this time it would be players, actual players. Like I saw one, I can't remember who it was, but it was a Man City player. Did you ever knowingly appear as one of the players in one of the drawings in the You Are the Ref feature?
I can't ever remember thinking about that actually.
I tell you what, I'll make that my homework, and I'll look through them all and see if I can find if he appeared in it.
I was at Liverpool. We were in the Cop the day that Gary Sprake threw the ball into his own goal, and the Leeds players were trying to say to the referee, "That's not allowed. You can't throw the ball into your own goal." But I mean, obviously not the case. But that was weird and wonderful. That was you see some things down life, and you remember it forever. And that was incredible, seeing Gary Sprake just go to throw it out and then weirdly throw it into his own goal.
Do you know, now you mentioned it, I think that may have appeared in one of these, because I can visualise Gary Sprake, because he had that hair which sort of came out at the bottom. Yeah. There was definitely a drawing with that. So
Leeds players are giving it all that. No.
They're putting the pressure on. We're going to jump out of the magazine just for a few minutes here, and we're going to do. And I know for a fact you've done one of these before because I've seen it. The focus on. So I'm just going to throw a few questions your way, David, and if you just give us the answer, yeah. So I'll run through it. Full name.
David Fairclough.
Birthplace?
Liverpool.
What was your first car?
First car was an Escort 1100 Ford Escort.
Okay, and we know this one already. Favourite player?
My favourite player, Roger Hunt.
The favourite football team?
Obviously.
Yeah. What's been the biggest thrill of your life?
Biggest thrill would have been, aside from playing with Liverpool, the initial thing, I think the biggest thrill playing in the 1978 European Cup final.
What's been the biggest disappointment?
Not playing in the 1977 FA Cup final.
What's the best country you visited?
Gosh, since I've been to more countries since, but I mean Switzerland, Italy. Now probably, oh God, I always say now it's either Italy or New Zealand.
Okay. What's your favourite food?
My favourite food has also changed now. I've become much more discerning. Favourite food would be calves liver.
Okay, that's a good one.
What did I say? I said
I think steak. It was,
I
yeah. It was steak and something else, but I can't remember what the something else was.
Steak and Chinese, I think.
Chinese, it was. That's the one. Yeah.
yeah.
What's your favourite TV show?
I did a couple of these down the years. Probably. Well, it used to be Dallas at one time. Is Dallas on that one?
I don't think
Only
so.
Fools and Horses.
That might have been,
yeah. But I was a big Dallas fan in the day. I can't remember what I would have put on that one. I don't know whether Only Fools and Horses were out then even. Oh, Rising Damp.
Rising Damp. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Favourite singers? Just two singers that you like.
Well, my favourite singers also Detroit Spinners were a big favourite of mine. I think in those days, I was a little bit of an Olivia Newton-John fan.
Yeah, and that one was mentioned, yes.
Yeah.
Favourite actors?
Actors probably at the time, maybe Larry Hagman might have been there.
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
Possibly, I think Larry Hagman might have been, yeah.
Julia Foster, I think. Do you remember that? Does that feature in there somewhere? But you changed. God bless us. Going back, you didn't see much TV in those days, so
no, that's fine.
TV was very limited.
Okay, who's your best friend?
My best friend at the time. Well, that will have changed down the way, but around those times, it was a kid called Bernie Jones was my best friend.
Right.
Does it say anything there?
I don't have it in front of me, but I'll look it out later on and have a wee check.
My mate was but lad lived next door, but once he was my best mate. But I had a couple of mates, obviously within football.
Yeah.
In the Liverpool team, Joey Jones, Sammy Lee.
Yeah. Okay. Last question: which person in the world would you most like to meet?
Yeah, the Queen.
Okay.
Yeah, still
great stuff. So we'll delve back into unless you have any questions, Tom, we'll delve back into the magazine.
No, let's go back.
In fact, before we go in, so we have a charity partner with the podcast, David, which is the West Dunbartonshire Community Food Share. And so I'm just going to give a little readout for what they do. So this is a charitable organisation that provides various services and support to the local community, including the following: school uniform bank, a school holiday brunch bags, food provisions, Christmas toy bank, cooking and growing lessons, and a baby bank. Now, they provide essential support to the local community and supporting individuals and families, and we will be looking to support them in any way we can through the podcast. This will include drives for donations of food, money and support in the form of volunteers. We'll also be raising awareness of the group to highlight the work that they do, but also to ensure that families and individuals who can benefit from the group are aware that these vital services actually exist. And you can follow them on the West Dunbartonshire Community Food Share group on Facebook, or keep an eye on their Twitter accounts at shoottb_podcast and Scott's Footy Cards for updates and news on our charity partner. So one of the things we do with the podcast is we have a web page for it as well. And on the web page, we basically put all the magazine clippings and photographs and everything that we talk about, so that when somebody's listening to the podcast, they can follow along and look at the articles like we're doing as well. One of the things we do as well is we put a donate button on there, that for every £1 that you donate, you get a virtual raffle ticket. And when we draw that, the winner will get a goodie bag, and it will contain the original magazine that we've been going through, as well as some other goodies as well. So I'll put in some cards and stickers from the collection. So that the money for that will go to the West Dunbartonshire Community Food Share. So what we'll also do, and we'll touch on what you're up to as well, but if you have any links, any web pages or charities that you support yourself, then when we're doing the web page, we'll be in contact, get those and make sure that we've put them on the web page as well. So we'll move on to third round thriller. So it's 2-page black and white photos from the games in the third round of the FA Cup. So I'm going to just go straight to the important one, which is Emlyn Hughes preventing West Ham's Alan Taylor from getting in his shot, and in close attendance is Phil Neal. And Liverpool are playing in their away kit, which was white shirt and black shorts, red socks. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's Billy Jennings is the other hammer. It didn't say, but I think
Bill Jennings, yeah.
So Liverpool won that game 2-0. And I'm going to move on to page 30. So there's a couple of photographs here. Well, there's a photograph and a focus on. The photograph is of Brian Kidd, and I absolutely love this. It's a great full page colour of Brian Kidd of Arsenal. It shows him running away, but he's got his head sort of turned round backwards, and it's your classic Arsenal kit, red with the white sleeves. But for me, the most startling thing about this is his hair. I mean, that is probably the greatest mop of hair that I've ever seen. It's
all natural.
But it probably, it's probably increases his head volume by at least 100%. At least 100%. Now I'm going to the Derby County in the background. I'm not too sure about that.
I think it could be Tottenham even. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, and that one's up for grabs and that. Okay, let's move on to Tartan Talk with Kenny Dalglish. And it says, so Kenny's still at Celtic at this point. He says, I'm nervous on match day. So he talks through a typical match day for him at Celtic. He says, if the game is at Celtic Park, I normally have a lie-in, rising around noon for a lunch of boiled eggs or a similar light lunch. He then catches up with football on the TV and gets ready for the off. He arrives at the ground just before 2 o'clock. First up is a massage to loosen up the joints and muscles. About 5 to 3 they have a final team talk. He says, I like to be nervous before a game. Nerves get the adrenaline flowing and put an edge on your game. At half time we have a quick chat on how the game is going and something to drink. I usually have tea, although some players prefer orange juice or some similar beverage. Then it's back to work again for another 45 minutes. No matter the final result, after match discussions are left to the following Monday. By then everyone has cooled down and is less likely to say anything he will regret. For away matches, they leave by coach about 10 a.m. and have some lunch when they arrive. Pre-match preparations away are the same as at Celtic Park. He says Saturday evenings are usually a meal with his wife Marina and some friends, or watching TV at home. Now, just as a spoiler, Celtic failed to win a trophy this season for the first time in 12 years, and Kenny was signed by Liverpool for a British record 440,000 and made his debut in August 1977. So does that sort of pre-match routine, does that ring true to how it was for yourself, or was it a bit different?
Yeah, pretty much. We went away. Liverpool went away before every game, home or away.
Right.
So we went to you go to the ground on a Friday night, and then they take you to the country hotel where the players were. Normally we arrived about 8:30, 8:45. Then it was tea and toast at 9 o'clock. The boys would generally watch a bit of television in the tea room for people just having a cup of tea, bit of toast, watching the telly till somewhere close to 10 o'clock, and then most of them would just disappear and go to bed. Next morning, don't remember any of the players except Joey Jones was the only player I ever knew who got out of bed and went to breakfast. Everybody else would have a bit of tea and toast, cornflakes in their room, Lunchtime was lunch was 12 o'clock, and then at 1 o'clock it was on the coach back to Anfield or wherever we were. It was pretty, it didn't change for all that time that I was there. Same hotels, same routines, same foods. Nothing changed. They were so stuck in their ways. So Kenny would have adapted to that.
Yeah.
No boiled eggs. I don't remember him eating boiled eggs, but I think Kenny was a fish man. I think. I think he. I mean, when I broke into the team, the first when I broke in, 75, every player had a fillet steak for lunch. Just piece of fillet steak. That's all you had. About 18 months, 2 years later. Probably when the likes of Kenny arrived and one or two others, there were options. So it was either became fish or steak.
Yeah.
So I think Kenny probably sparked that off. Actually, I think he would have been the instigator of that.
Maybe this explains the focus on answer for food then, is because that's all footballers got fed, was steak and fish.
Yeah.
So maybe that could
right.
explain it.
So I was just going to say, what was it like playing alongside Kenny?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I played in his debut match. His debut match was the Charity Shield, 77 at Wembley. It's difficult sometimes to you don't kind of think that just because he's in the team you're going to win, or you give him the ball or anything like that. He was just one of 11.
Yeah.
Equally, you had people like huge characters, people like Tommy Smith, Emlyn Hughes, and then obviously Kenny would create magic. There's no doubt about that. He did some fantastic things, but only good. Only good memories. Never fell out with Kenny at all. Never had any reason to fall out with him. I can't ever remember having any cross words with Kenny at all.
Like you say, David, that whole era for Liverpool, there wasn't a weak link in the team. Everybody was a terrific player. It wasn't as if you just had two guys driving the team all throughout the team.
No, there was no reliance on any one person to be dog mooching around. I mean, even the European Cup final '78, he didn't have the best of games. In fact, it was probably the only real thing that he did of note was scoring a goal on the night. So he wasn't one who, not taking any credit from him. He wasn't the one who kind of made us. He was a massive part of it, but he wasn't the only reason why we did things. It was very much a team ethic. It was a huge part of what Liverpool did was that. And I think Kenny, when you listen to Kenny talk, I mean, he talks about how important it was to be a team, big unit.
Okay, so we're at the results, scorers and team lineups pages, which, as I've said, I love these things with the scores, the attendances, the goal scorers, the teams, things like that. So we're going to pick out a few. The first one is Saturday, December the 13th, English Division 1, and it's Everton 5, Birmingham 2, so a high scoring game there. Next one is Spurs 0, Liverpool 4, goals from Keegan, Case, Neil, Highway. And there's yourself coming on there for Peter Cormack in that game. The Scottish Premier League, Aberdeen beat Celtic 2-0. I think that was probably one of the highlights of the season. Aberdeen, who didn't do particularly well.
Yeah, that's a shock.
Dundee United 0, Hearts 1, a few other scores. Rangers 3, Ayr United 0. The other one I'm going to look at is from Saturday, December the 20th, and again, Liverpool. This, reading about the season, I'm guessing this was probably one of the big results of the season. Liverpool 2, QPR 0, goals from Toshak and Neil. So, I mean, obviously, QPR were the ones who were right up there until the very death. This, as important as the Wolves game was at the end, I guess this was maybe just as important. Would that have been right?
Yeah, I mean, because they'd beaten Liverpool the first game of the season, 2-0.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we went really December. I don't think there was a feeling that Liverpool were up for the league because it was a real late run. I didn't feature in the team till. I mean, I had a couple of little appearances. Made my debut in November. Made a couple of little appearances, but then didn't get into the for a run until sort of February, March time. End of maybe March. It's only then that we went on this incredible run, and we never lost for God knows how many games. Probably. And that's what did it, really got us into it, because I think there's a stage in the season, I've seen it before, when we were like fourth or fifth off the pace, and then we got into this run and just sort of swept up on the sidelines, really.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking at that QPR team there, Stan
Great
Bowles,
team.
Frank McClintock, Don Masson.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see that team because it's hidden by your images. But
so it's Parks, Clement, Gillard, Hollins, McClintock, Webb, Thomas, Francis, Masson, Bowles, and Given.
Yeah, Don Givens. Yeah, Don became a big mate of mine through playing in Switzerland. But yeah, I mean, they're all big solid names, aren't they? And they fully expected to win the league. I mean, they were upset because we had the UEFA Cup final that they had to fill in, and they decided to play the UEFA Cup final before the last league game. Well, they were up in arms. They were finished, done and dusted, and you had this one game hanging on for like 2 weeks, 10 days after they'd all finished up. So yeah, they weren't happy about that. The rearrangement of the Wolves game.
Mm. We've come to the end of part 1 of our David Fairclough podcast. Join us next time where we'll chat more to David on items in the magazine and his time at Liverpool.